We start tonight with the F.A.N.G fade out in an old school blast of Mariah Carey. Is it time to let go of F.A.N.G? As the market hits new high after new high this month, the F.A.N.G stocks are nowhere to be found. None of them are at new highs. Facebook's still in a bear market. Netflix is in a correction. Google is barely out of a correction, still down 9% from its high, while Amazon is down 7% from its high. We saw all the F.A.N.G stocks selling off today as well. So is this trade, the F.A.N.G trade, over, Guy?
No, I actually think it's probably going to start round two pretty soon, but you have to pick your spots. And we've had conversations about this. A couple weeks ago, we talked about Amazon maybe being ahead of its skis in terms of valuation, in terms of relative strength. We said maybe it trades to 1850. I'll stand by that as it trades 1910 now. Facebook's another name. Listen, again, I didn't think it was going to rally off the hearings back in March, rally to 205, but I think it's going to round trip. I think you will see Facebook back down to 155 or thereabouts, without question. And the third one on my list for right now would be Netflix. I think as we get closer to October 16th, which is when they report earnings, I think that's a name that you want to start to dip your toe in again. I can't believe, and you have to prove me wrong on this one, but I don't think you have two miserable quarters in a row. I think Netflix shapes up interesting in the October 16th earning release.
Well, I just say that you can actually punt out Netflix and Facebook at this point. I think they're very specific stories.
Punt them out.
Punt them out of the F.A.N.G.
It's almost like a trade
done with the
F.A.N.G.
So what is it? What does that mean? It's just off? It's just
Guy and I
off?
just came up with this. We think it's pretty original. We're going to call it MAGA.
What?
We're going to do Microsoft, we're going to do Apple, we're going to do Google, and we're going to do Amazon. Those four stocks, MAGA, hashtag that, okay, M-A-G-A. Grasso's all over.
Microsoft, Apple,
No, but those four stocks
See what you did
are
there.
10% of the S&P 500.
Right.
And they represent a disproportionate amount of the S&P's 10% gains
Give me
a year.
again. Microsoft.
Microsoft, Apple,
Google,
Amazon. $3.5 trillion in market cap.
I can't believe you could utter those four initials together.
I know.
Dan.
It's
That's really
ironic
impressive.
it comes from Dan, of all people
I think
here.
we need to work on those four letters in that. No, listen, I think that Netflix is not particularly important anymore. I think Facebook could be really range bound for the balance of the year. Those four stocks
I think
really
Facebook,
dictate the next step of the market.
I think for the next week, you have Jeff Sessions has a bunch of headwinds coming at this whole sector. So it's Facebook, it's Google. They're going to have a problem with it. Amazon even is going to have a problem with it. There's going to be no problem with Netflix. So Netflix, I think you could still buy it. I agree there, but I don't know about the other Twitters and the social. I think there's going to be a regulatory headwind for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
I find it amazing that now universally people don't like Facebook and they think they've got headwinds. I'm not pointing fingers at these guys.
The pendulum really
but I mean, if
swung
it
really
was
quickly.
2 months ago, all we'd be saying
Yeah.
is how cheap this company is and wait till earnings. They're not going to lose any users. And now everybody's focused on the regulatory environment. Guess what? You should be. And next week, as Steve pointed out, you've got congressional hearings and you actually have 6 companies, which also include AT&T and a couple other names, that I think are going to be coming under more pressure. And so therefore, if you look at F.A.N.G., and if you're if you're someone that sells data, as opposed to someone that sells products and use data for that, I think you're in a much greater regulatory headwind cross current than those folks that just are using technology to sell products.
I think the original problem with Facebook,
you know,
though, was when they started screwing around with their news feed. Obviously, we know about the privacy issues, but they started screwing around with their news feed, and that was the tip of the iceberg. That was before all of this stuff really started coming down the pike.
Right. But you still like Google because you left it in your MAGA.
Well, no.
Otherwise, it would be Ma, which is no fun to say.
I think the Jeff Sessions thing is really interesting. I think it's very clear that Jeff Sessions is not going to be the Attorney General in a few months after the midterm elections, right? And so the thing about regulation is that the Dems are just as interested in regulating these sorts of entities
So
as
isn't that a
Republicans.
major headwind for these guys?
It is a major headwind. And so I do think that Facebook is going to be range bound until we see how they deal with this election, until we see whether they are self-regulating and how expensive that is, and whether users disengage, whether advertisers are not there. We're not going to know that again for a couple more months.
It's a good point. I think up until the midterms, that might give some clarity to it to see what they're going to do, because they're actually forced to do it sooner rather than later. But ultimately, I think it's a buying opportunity once you get through a little bit of that fog.
Look, I think these guys have massive margin, right? So in other words, why are these companies doing so well? Why have they rallied outside of Amazon? But, you know, basically the margins in these companies, they're high margin businesses. I think they will continue to be. I don't think they're going out of business because of this. But if you're in the C-suite, if you're on the board of directors, you are laser focused on what's going on in Washington next week. And you're going to spend more money, and you're going to pull back and say, you know what, we're going to do everything we need to do. And guess what? I don't think that's great for the shares. I wrote an op-ed about this, Dan.
Did you check it out finally? Because he wrote it a while ago.
I heard about it.
He did?
Apparently, because
Yeah,
nobody here saw it.
He's
A lot of people
he's
did.
just blossoming in front of our eyes.
Really?
But I'd like to say in terms of Tim's charge, guilty as charged in terms of Facebook without question. When Facebook was 155 during the hearings, everything that Tim said, that's what I thought. And then the stock proceeded to go from 155 to 205. And I'm sitting here saying, well, the market clearly doesn't care about that. Well, now it seems to
Yeah,
carry.
but they
it.
hadn't guided yet. The street hadn't readjusted their numbers yet. So now you're looking at 20, 30% growth, which is actually it's come down over the last 2 quarters here, at least in analysts' eyes. And the stock's now trading at 17, 18, 19 times forward. So it is cheap. We just have to wait
It's not
for.
cheap. It's not cheap, and it's been that cheap for 2 years.
I know, but
So
the point
bottom line-
was when it was at 155 back in late March, it wasn't de-risked yet, right? Investors hadn't reset their expectations, and the street hadn't reset. The consensus was still much higher than where it is right now.
What I would repeat is companies are what multiple you're willing to pay for them. Their earnings are what they are. Does Facebook and their management team deserve a premium multiple? I don't think they do, but the market decided that, not me. And that's 2 years in the running and doing that, underperforming the tech sector even before that earnings.
What if more and more people say, let go of FANG? Can the markets proceed and keep at record highs?
Can the market stay at record highs with us? So that's the whole, slim leadership. Can the markets?
Yeah.
But we've had
And tech is
rotation.
the biggest.
We've had rotation,
FANG
and
is
the
the
banks,
heaviest
all-time
weight.
highs already.
banks are starting to participate. So here we are with the S&P 500 right around all-time highs, with most of these stocks we just mentioned significantly off their all-time highs. So for now, at least, I think the market can hang in there.
I think the universal ownership and the institutional ownership of so many of these names, it's very difficult for someone to actually sell these names aggressively and give up their holdings. So these top 10 holders of a lot of these names, I do believe are going to hang on to it. I don't think you're going to see any forced selling or any really mammoth selling.